Hey, hunting family, you are tuning into the Tracks and Tackle podcast, brought to you by Menser Outdoors.
Welcome to episode 49 of Tracks and Tackle. Today, Brady and I deep dive into some fascinating statistics about whitetail deer. We'll be talking about herd dynamics, including the survival rate of fawns and how those numbers are impacted year to year. We'll also touch on the concerning decline of hunter numbers and how last season's harvest data compares to previous years. If you're passionate about deer hunting and want to understand more about the numbers behind the hunt, this episode's for you. Let's get into it. Hey there, hunting family. It's time to give a shout out to a company that's been keeping our communities moving since 1995. I'm talking about Interstate Garage Doors. For nearly 3 decades, Interstate Garage Doors has been the go-to choice for comprehensive garage door services in South Central PA, as well as the surrounding Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia areas. And get this, they're not just any company. They're veteran-owned and family-operated with a proud history of serving both residential and commercial clients. Their professional technicians are the real deal, offering top-notch installations from industry-leading manufacturers and expert repairs for all garage door makes and models. From residential garage doors to overhead doors and openers, Interstate Garage Doors does it all. So whether you're a hardworking contractor building homes or a homeowner looking for service or just needing an upgrade, you can trust Interstate Garage Doors to get the job done right. And hey, they're not just experts in garage doors, they're also experts in giving back to the community, sponsoring podcasts like Tracks and Tackle. Are you ready to experience the Interstate difference for yourself? If so, here's a little something extra for our loyal podcast listeners. Use promo code Tracks and Tackle when you contact Interstate so they know you heard about them here. Just visit igdoors.com today to get an estimate or request service, or give them a call at 717-263-3150. Don't wait. Take the first step towards a smoother, more secure garage today.
What is going on, everybody? It is episode 49 of Tracks and Tackle. We are so close to getting onto that 50 mark, a good milestone. I'm here with the Arrow Eagle, and I am Brady Menser, Menser Outdoor Tracks and Tackle staff here, and we got a good one in store for you. Arrow, why don't you let the people know what's good?
Yeah, man. Just like you said, we're getting close to that number 50 mark. Started the podcast a year and a half ago, and we just continue to bring on new guests and meet different people in the industry, and we're having a ton of fun doing this. So ideally, they say you got to continue to podcast. They say you hit your stride when you hit around 100. So we're like halfway there. We're still plugging along and learning as we go. So just had some great guests on recently, and we got some good guests coming on here in the next month or so as we approach the beginning of archery season. Can't believe it's that time already, only a couple of weeks away here in Pennsylvania, and Maryland's getting rolling. And we just got some really cool guests coming on, and I think that our listeners are going to be really excited to hear the stories and the tales that we've got in store here for the next month or so.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's fun to reflect on how much we've grown as a podcasting team. Our quality's improved, and just the guest friends and new hunting family that we acquired and joined on their mission as well. But it's been fun, and that's the bottom line. This is why we do it. It's fun. It's a blast, and it's enjoyable to do with you and just to connect and grow. But why don't you let our folks know here what you've been up to of late? I know archery season's getting close. We're getting our bows out more. and just getting shot in. I know I'm personally getting pumped for that.
Yeah, shooting the bow a lot more than probably early summer. Um, just getting those reps in, building that stamina, getting that muscle. I'm doing a lot of thinking about, as far as scouting goes. We keep cameras out all summer long. I know some guys just put them out in the fall. I want to say the last month or so. I know that we talked in previous episodes about some of the work that we were doing up at our camp, construction work, sort of just doing some work details to get camp ready for this winter. But we pretty much stayed out of the woods, up at our hunting camp for the last month or so. But we've got the cameras up. We're getting great intel. I got a new screensaver on my phone, which is a target buck that you sent me a picture of the other day. Trying to work and make a living, and I'm getting these videos of these monsters that are out in the middle of the night. So hopefully he shows himself in daylight, or he's got a rival that comes through. But we know the deer are there, and we know that we will be there as well. Once that season opens up. So looking forward to it, and spending some time with family. Just you know how it is with hunting season. We get really busy. Our weekends are full all fall long. So trying to make the most of the time with loved ones before we shift gears into hunting season.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, gotta spend those precious time together before it's every weekend we're up at camp. I think we talked and we worked out our schedule. It's like every other weekend we're up, and as it gets closer to the rut, our time up there is a lot more. So making sure we balance our time and just spend time with the loved ones before we kiss them goodbye and head to camp with a mission to fill the freezer some. But yeah, I've been shooting the bow a lot more too. Actually might need to go to a bow shop. My peep sight fell off, and I don't use my peep sight. I use a different thing, but the issue now is it's making this cartoonish rubber band sound now when I shoot.
Oh yeah.
So I need just a little bit of, I might need a bow press, but yeah, keeping these bow guys in business is a lot of archers, because they're breaking the bows out late. They're getting their shot in the week before, the week during, and they're like, oh crap, I need to get this fixed. So they rush in, and I'm just hoping I'm not with that crowd being 2 weeks out, but I might be. I don't know. So
I
that's
get in
on
there
my
as soon
agenda
as possible.
to go to the bow. Yeah, just because, if I do have an errant shot, or if there's multiple deer, I don't want them to be scared by the first shot going off. So just doing that. I know this weekend we got lined up a fun target practice shoot.
Yep.
I'm thinking of ways that I'm going to modify it, but I was inspired by that Dillsburg shoot that we did, which why don't you tell our listeners what that was all about?
Yeah, well, we got a cousin who is, part of the Menser family name. He's part of the hunting family, and he's a member of a club that basically what they do is they set up 3D shoot several targets, and they shoot, once a week, all summer long. So you can get tuned in. He invited us to go along and do some shooting with them. We got a video on the channel. I'll be rolling out here in the next couple of days where you can see some of the highlights from that. But it's just a ton of fun. It's good practice, and hunting with family. We hunt for bragging rights, and man, I'll tell you, those guys have been shooting all summer long, probably a little bit more serious than we have, and they've been doing really good. So I was really impressed with the setup that they had out there, and appreciate them taking us along out there to get a taste of it. And we met a lot of really cool archers, other people. Everybody's friendly. We all love the sport. It's part of that networking piece too, where you run into people that have common interests, and you go through and you do the shoot, but then you're sitting there at the tailgate at the end of the day, having conversations. So we're just getting out there, having a lot of fun. Appreciate those guys for bringing us along.
Yeah, so it inspired me. I just wanted to do a knockoff version with our bags rather than the 3D target, and just set up different stations where you get one shot, make it count, make it as realistic as possible. Maybe even get up in a climber tree stand, practice our climbing, just review the safety harness, and just get more familiar with that. But yeah, ultimately, challenge ourselves with incline, decline, further distances, improving that confidence. But that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend. But Hey, we got a good episode here lined up. We are going to do some reviewing, and what we're going to be discussing is whitetail population and just the outlook as a whole. So, as we talked, archery season's right around the corner. That's the only thing that's on my mind right now. So, what better than to talk about it? So, I did some research into some articles here. We're going to review together here with Ron and just give each other's takes on it. So, the first article I found was just talking about fawns. So fawns this year, seasons are changing, weather's changing, later drop, just for them to come around, which in turn means for the archery hunters out there, it's going to be a later rut till those does come back into in the heat. But some statistics out there on fawns, if you really look at their mortality rates and their rate of survival, it's not the greatest. So 23% of them, I don't know how they came and collaborated on these studies. I know different studies looked at different groups of deer, but across the whole, they found that 23% of the fawns were killed by predators. And I was very surprised by the different predators here. Ron, why don't you highlight a few of the predators? I know this one here talks about coyotes, and I know I don't get you started on coyotes. Everybody hates them, and I know you really, distaste the coyotes. But there's a few other predators on this list here that appear to be snacking on some fawns.
All right, so I'm am I checking this article that you sent or
Yeah, Article 1.
all right, so some of the stats that you put down here, yeah, you mentioned coyotes and nobody likes and we all a good coyote's a dead coyote, right? But you also we're gonna be dealing with black bear and bobcat. And one of the things I'll say about you don't think that black bear are necessarily going to go out and take the life of a deer, but nature is survival of the fittest, right? And so it does happen. Bear will eliminate younger, the weak ones. But bobcat is the thing that sticks out to me because a fawn is usually can outgrow a bobcat pretty quickly, but they can't necessarily outrun the bobcat. And I know that we got video earlier this year of a really really big size cat on trail camera where we've been scouting, and so it's just interesting, that you see these different types of animals, and I'm talking about like the Pennsylvania study because you get into different types of terrain in different parts of the country. You're going to have different types of predators as well. So I'm just thinking about, you get out west and you're dealing with mountain lions and, bigger cats that are more predatory. But at the end of the day, when those fawns are dropping, they need to get through that first couple of months, until they can get their legs under them and survive. Because a deer's defense really is try to blend in. And sometimes that doesn't work out best for them.
Yeah. I'm seeing here, which was really interesting as we bring up coyotes and talk about coyotes, is that a study in Alabama found that coyotes were 63% of the mortality of fawns, while in South Carolina, it's actually as high as 80%. So I'm curious myself to look in whether, number A, they have a lot more coyotes and a higher coyote population, or option 2, they have less of the bears, bobcats, and anything else that would want to feast on a fawn for like an easy snack. So that's where my mind goes. But all in all, just the outlook for their life isn't the greatest. In the first 34 weeks that a fawn is born, you said its best way to survive is just camouflage. It's going to lie still. Its senses aren't the greatest. But they found that in the first 34 weeks, in a group of 106 fawns they were tracking, 46.2% had a mortality. So that's almost half of each fawn that drops in that little herd.
Crazy.
But that's mind blowing to me. Like I know, like they're very they're not able to defend themselves. So I know the outlook isn't the greatest, but I didn't realize that it was that high.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking with, I talk with non-hunters all the time, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and she was, hey, I saw a deer today, and I thought of you, and so she brings up, she saw close to her home, there was this little fawn that was laying in the tall grass in her backyard, and she was able to walk up to it. She thought maybe it had been hit by a car, or she's non-hunters, they don't know, right? And so she didn't see the mom, and so she was walking up to it, and I told her, I'm like, hopefully you didn't touch it or anything like that, like the mom will come back to it. But she was just so surprised that she could get within like 5 or 6 yards, and she didn't interact with it. She didn't want to cause it any harm or anything. But and then she did see the mother doe. But anyway, my point is like, she was just astounded that she could walk up so close to that doe, or the fawn. But its only mechanism, and its nature, it's built in, is sit still, blend in, and don't be seen.
They found that the mother doe actually will only visit the fawn about 2 or 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So in the grand scheme, that's not often. The mom basically wants to, I'm going to leave this thing alone. It's going to be safer if I'm not drawing attention to it.
Right.
And on top of that too, they found that the mom just hangs out around 300 feet away. So for that lady, she was approaching. The mom's not too far away. She's keeping an eye on it, but just for safety reasons, she's not getting there. And then another thing too, you brought up, you don't want to touch the fawn or put any scent around it. Fawns can actually format, I guess is the word for it, but they can attach and they can bond in the first few days to anything that's moving, including humans.
Right.
So they can just lose that bond association with their mother.
Yeah, I think it's called an impression. Like, it's like,
yeah,
they impress upon what they see, and I think that goes for most creatures, but yeah, you gotta let nature. I know we're talking about life and death here and the survival rate of these fawns, but yet nature does take its course. There is the hard reality that some of them won't make it, and that's just providing for, whether it's the coyote or the bear or the bobcat, it's providing a meal for those animals as well.
Yeah, it's a system, but I want to talk and tie in conservation, because we're all about giving and taking. There's a balance to everything.
Totally.
So they find that older deer drop more fawns.
Yeah.
So they put more into the system for the population, while younger deer put less out. So this is a very interesting topic, because if you're looking to preserve nature and preserve hunting as a sport, what you want to do is you would want to harvest that smaller deer rather than shooting that mature deer that's going to put more into the system. Which to me, that like it ties in ethics. Like, as I gotten older, when I'm younger, I've shot a few smaller deer, we'll call them.
Mm-hmm.
But they taste great. They all taste good. But as I'm older now, it's harder and harder to pull that trigger, and I'm all about mature deer. So like, hearing these statistics, they found a doe 2.5 years or older spits out about 2.3 fawns per year, while under 1.5 years is 0.7, because some are just too young to be bred or conceive.
Sure.
So
yeah.
It just really makes you think of that balance. Like most years, I would say I'm harvesting a mature doe. So like, I'm taking away from the system versus those 2 or 3 yearlings that are along. And yeah, we can talk about this more. Like I said, I don't think it's personally going to change the way that I am. I'm going to hunt. Like, yearlings aren't my game. Like, let them grow.
Sure.
But
well, I think
it's just interesting about the conservation effort.
Yeah, and I think it depends on why you're hunting. If I'm a farmer and the deer are eating my crops, I'm gonna want to thin that herd down. So take out the older does. They're going to produce more, but if a younger doe comes through, you're going to take it out too. Like farmers aren't really being particular. They're just trying to protect their crop and their harvest, whereas like guys like us, like, we're going out, we're hunting for meat in the freezer, there's a lot of work involved, so if you can take out that mature doe, yeah, she's probably going to produce more per year as far as offspring go, but you're getting, more meat, more pounds of meat for the freezer when you take that mature doe versus that young one as well. And so, our take usually is leaning towards, let that younger one grow up and, get a big old nanny doe that's gonna fill the freezer. But then we've all talked about this on shows before. The really old deer, whether it's an old buck or an old doe, she's gonna taste a lot different than that younger deer that hasn't aged.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think ultimately it ties to like where you're at, what the deer population's like. If you're seeing deer steadily, don't think twice about taking that mature deer and feeding your family.
Right.
Versus, I think just as a whole, if there's a thin population, maybe think about that a little bit more. But just food for thought. I just think it's interesting to think into because when that opportunity presents itself, we don't really think. We think more so like, hey, let's feed the family.
And I know guys, and the people that I'm talking about, that they won't kill does. They let does walk because they're trophy buck hunters, and they're trying to manage their property, and they know that the does will draw the bucks in, and so they won't take a doe. So we're all different in that aspect.
Everybody's different. I think it'll be good to. There's some statistics on last year's harvest report. We'll get in here soon. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but moral of the story is, deer reproduce as we all do. The survival chances for the fawns aren't the greatest, and just something to think of. Just the fact that mature deer have more offspring, non-mature deer might not have an offspring at all. So just find that balance in the system and keeping that in mind, I think, is just a great message for topic number one. Now, topic number two, just looking in the deer population size, is more so looking at us as hunters and what is happening here soon. And in the next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be a shift in the sense that there's going to be less hunters in the woods. Why is that? People are getting old, and not as many people are getting out in the woods and hunting. An article here found that statistically, hunters are older, number one, but just finding out the percentage of hunters as well. Most hunters are male, and most hunters are white, versus population of that is shifting. Male population's down to 48%, and non-white population's increasing as well. So that might be just a mild piece of the chart, but another piece of the chart, as I mentioned, was people are getting old. 1991, 41% of the U.S. population was more than 45 years old. So that increased to 52% by 2016. So in 15 years, that increased by 11%. People are getting older. Now, if you look at the hunting population within that, it made a jump from 28% to 60%. Like, wow, that's big. That's a huge jump.
I'll say, like, I'm no scientist, and I don't want to get, don't get me started on like political views or whatever, but we need to start raising young men with a little bit of masculinity and get their butts outside, teach them how to catch a fish, teach them how to skin a buck, and, provide for their family. Where, I look at the generation of children, especially, young men, but young girls too, they're just not doing things outdoors, which is what we try to champion on this show. We want to say, nature is our playground. We want to get outside. We want to get some dirt under the fingernails, and we play outdoors. So we need a little bit of masculinity, back into the youth of this next generation. And hunting is a very primal thing, going out and harvesting your own animal, um, you know field to table. We love it. We were raised doing it, and I think there are different pockets, depending on like where you are. I guess you have it everywhere. Like if you're raised in a high density population, like an urban area in the city, you may not get the same exposure as the good old boys, down in the um, southeastern United States. You know what I mean? So like population densities in general, but speaking in very general terms, I think that we need some masculinity instilled into these young men that are growing up in this generation. And it's really a mandate for guys like you and guys like me to mentor the next generation.
Yeah, I think it's big on, the word you use there is mentor. We shoulder that responsibility to pass it down to those before us. But I think, today's day and age, the internet's around. There's plenty of easy ways to distract yourself, entertain yourself without even leaving the house, to get that fresh air. But, different hobbies now too. There's better connection with people, and kind of just like you said, like your exposure. If you're in the city, you might not even think once about it because there's no area around you to go out and play. Versus if you're, in the country where you have the world's your oyster, you can make it as you see it. But yeah, I just think people are getting older, and why people aren't going into it. I feel a common theme that I hear from those maybe even your age and older that I'm talking to, and they used to hunt, but then they stopped. Number one is time, and you make time for the things you want to do. So it just might not be that their passion called to them. And number two, whether it's boredom or the weather getting cold, I guess they just don't find that to be passionate or, to fill their cup, which I think is an interesting take, which we talked about too. If you have a bass pond and it's filled with bass and you're catching bass, like you feel good. Yeah. But if you're in a pond with no fish, you're going to get bored pretty quick. So, having success early in life, if they started hunting, but they're in a poorly managed deer population area, it's not gonna be as rewarding and give them that drive. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I got a really good take on this, because I agree with you. If you're starting out like a youngster or somebody that, even if they're not young, but they're just getting started, success is the key, so hunting something where there's a little bit of success. So you do get bit by what we say, you get bit by the bug, and, you want to continue to do this. But it's not easy, right? I mean, look, we want the easy thing. We want to be able to throw a rod out there and have that fish hit right away. And like, that's what we see on YouTube. That's what we see on, social media. And it's hard. We put in a lot of really hard work, like to be successful at being an outdoorsman. It takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And there's just a lot of people that, from young to old, they don't have that. They don't want to put that into it. It's a lot of it. There are other things that they'd rather spend their time doing, so how do we make it more attractive? I think that, yes, we got to get programs in place where at a young age, you make it fun, and you try to stack the deck so that people have some success, at a young age. So getting them started on like small game or, birds or something where they get at least get shooting, because to go out and sit all day long and never shoot the gun, that can be tough, but I think most of us that were raised deer hunting, whitetail deer hunting, have probably a similar story. If when we were raised in a family doing this, first couple of years, we tried really hard, really hopeful, eventually we harvest that first deer, and then after we got that first deer, we start, getting into a positive rhythm of, annually getting our harvest. You grow into it, and you've even talked about it, you're in your 20s now, but when you were a teenager, your outlook was different on hunting, but now you're putting a lot more different perspective into it, and scouting and energy, and letting deer walk. And that just continues to change when you get to be in your 40s or older. The old timers have a lot more patience than what some of us do who are younger. And anyway, I say all that just to say, if it was easy, everybody would want to do it. But because it's not easy, you get a lot of guys that are deterred by that, not wanting to put the effort in.
Yeah, it does take effort, which I'd say is a big thing, effort and time. We don't have too much time if you really look how the day goes by. You get older, you get family, you get a job.
Right.
Personally for myself, like I get it. Like like the gym, used to be big on the gym. Now not so much. Just weighing my priorities. I put it on the back burner so I could socialize and enjoy my passions. But I would actually challenge those that especially that have family and children, and it was something that they used to do in their pastime. That there's a lot of lessons that can be learned through hunting, and patience, perseverance, just being outside. It's just so beneficial. But challenge rather than, I guess not a rather, but I guess some of our hobbies, it's like, all right, I like doing this, but you like doing that. But more so intermingle, use that as life lessons to teach your offspring, and to mold them. Ultimately, if they don't like it, they don't like it, so be it. But just giving them that experience so that they can decide. For me personally, like my journey with hunting, it was slow in the beginning. Yeah, there's a lot of downtime, like I'm falling asleep in my stand, I'm cold, but it's so rewarding when that moment comes. It happens so fast. Words can't describe how much your heart races. You start shaking. Like it's just pure adrenaline, and there's nothing better than that moment. And then it's just a reward of the situation. So you have your outcome that you wanted and you waited for, and it might take a few sits before you get there. Definitely wasn't on my first sit,
Right.
or maybe even my first year. So just putting the time in, putting the effort. And then another thing I would encourage too is it's not all about the hunt. It's about the cabin atmosphere, the atmosphere with the family,
Totally.
the stories before, the stories after. That's what's got me hooked on this stuff, is just the bonding with family and friends, and all those around me that are part of this fun hunting family, I would say.
Yeah, I know you told me the other day you don't want another book recommendation. Like you got so many books that you got lined up that you want to read right now, but I've got a great book that I'll get in front of you. That's an easy read, something that you can leaf through during the cabin stays and stuff. And I was rereading it, and like one of the articles in the book, because it's several different articles, but it was just talking about exactly what you just said. Spending time, like we are wanting to hang out at the cabin. We're all dreaming of whether it's
all about perspective.
Yeah, we're all want that we're making memories on a farm or camping, or a camper or a tent or a cabin, or like we all have a different experience, but it's very similar in nature to that. And so if I can really quick, I want to plug, we're talking about mentoring, and we have a guest that's going to be coming on here in the next couple of weeks that he's very involved in mentoring youth and getting them involved. And so, looking forward to, broadening this subject matter and talking about, the benefits of getting younger people involved in the outdoor world. Because it's like that. We were talking about fawns, there's an impression that you can make. And, we got involved when we were younger and we stuck with it, so not to say people can't get involved later in life. I love to see that happen. I encourage that. I'm actually an advocate for that as well. But at the end of the day, it's not easy. Having a mentor, or what we would say, having a hunting buddy, doesn't matter how old or young you might be, doing it with someone else makes it a lot more fun. Right. So
yeah,
that's my take.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think phenomenal take. Yeah, I'm looking forward to with our guest here, just checking in and really hammering down. It's one thing to talk about something, but it's another thing to take action. Take the call.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, as for getting more hunters and even anglers out in the woods is just realizing, yeah, just how rewarding it is, and like I touched on, just the lessons that can be learned and the bonding along the way. I think are big things to highlight on. Um, I thought it was interesting too in my studies that they found that sales are down from last year, but if you look at the trend that was going on, COVID, when that hit in 2020, numbers for both skyrocketed, and people were getting outside. There was nothing else to do, so
Right.
they really like just connected with nature, and uh, they found that with that higher jump, there was less people, but it was more than what the trend was. So some of those people that got outside really did fall in love with it, and find that passion, that connection with the outdoors, and just like they got hooked on it. Is basically what the article was saying. So I think there's just value in that, just being
Yeah,
outside and
it's
away
true.
from the computer, away from the phone.
I mean, I
Words can't
work on
really
a
describe it, right?
yeah, I work on a computer all day long, and I'm just as susceptible. You got your cell phone and you got all the things that are like vying for your attention. But I'm telling you, man, getting up and walking away from it is like nothing will clear your mind like getting outdoors and time spent in a tree. Silence is not a bad thing. Listen to the wind blow through the trees. Listen to the leaves. I jumped on here, before the podcast, and all I could hear is you crunching chips, because you were, getting something, a snack in, waiting on me for the podcast. But I'd say, it sounds to me like crunching leaves. Like my brain's already there. Squirrels running through. You think it's a big buck, and yeah, we'll just we'll just approach fall with what's the word? With anticipation, because it's almost here.
Yeah, I am. I'm pumped. I shot my bow a little bit today. I'm eager this weekend to get out a lot. Like just talking about it just gives me the jitters, and it's making some of my hair stand up. But yeah, just to close out here, um, topic number one: fawn population. They're fragile. Um, the population for survival rate, if you look at that, isn't the greatest. And then topic number two here that we just touched on is that there's less hunters in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily now, but it's something to look for the future as folks are getting old and less people are getting into the sport. So just two takes there. Last take of the day. I just want to look and review our harvest reports here from last year. This was published back in, I believe, March. But I think it's interesting to dive in on, especially as we're talking about the deer population and current population as we speak now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think those topics that we covered are really important, and everything ties together, right? So you have, like you said, we talked about the reproduction of fawns, old does versus young does, and the survival rate of those young deer, and just the sort of the cycle of nature. And we just talked about the number of yeah, we talked about the number of deer hunters, population of us, going out and pursuing that game going down as well, and the need for mentors and the need for sort of a shot in the arm, the system. Because all right, I know we're moving on to the next topic, but let me just get this last word in on that. We have less hunters, but it feels like we have less hunting ground as well. Everybody wants a good hunting spot, and the more hunters vying for those spots, the more difficult it is for you to have a spot of your own that is successful. But at the end of the day, I want to see more hunters engaging in the sport. And so all this ties into, the last topic, which is those harvest numbers. And so I know you got some hard data. You looked into this. We'll drop the link in the description of the podcast for anybody that really wants to look at this. all this data we got from a couple of different articles. We'll post the links to all those for anybody that wants to go deeper. But Brady, why don't you just touch on some of those harvest numbers, and let's dive into this section.
Yeah, so I think it's more, all right, this is the amount of deer I killed out, harvest report, and at the end of that, see where my harvest report goes to. But it goes into a data system, and they crunch the numbers. And from 2022 to 2023 to 4 season, they found that last year 5% more bucks were harvested compared to the previous year, while the same amount of number of does that were harvested. So just talking about population, if you just look at that statistics alone, like fawns, they not fawns, but does, they reproduce, they put more into the system. So if they're staying the same, that system isn't going to be thrown into chaos. So I thought that was a big takeaway from what I was reading here. They found that even though they were giving out more doe tags, because each year, I don't know if it's each year, but of late it seems, I don't know if, Ron, you can tie back into, you're a few years older than me, if you can tie back into your youth, if it was like this each year. But each time I look into the Hunter's Digest, it seems like per area unit, they're increasing the doe tags by a couple thousand, it seems. So I don't know if you noticed that too, or if if that wasn't a thing back in the past.
It probably was a thing, if I'm being honest. When I was younger, like teenager hunting, I wasn't paying attention to it. I was just hunting. I was going out and harvesting my animals. I probably wasn't paying as much attention to the politics of wildlife conservation that I do now. But yeah, I will vouch for the number of tags allotted are increasing. And it goes by area. Now we're talking Pennsylvania here, and the different wildlife management units in PA. But certain ones we've seen incredible spikes year over year on doe tags that are available for sale. Growing up, I've never had an issue getting a doe tag, right? So I apply for doe tags every year, and I receive my doe tags every year. But I had this mentality, and I don't know if it was because this is the way things were, or if it's just how that I was raised, but it was like, you got to apply for a doe tag right away because they run out. And
yeah,
looking at this now, we have a digital world. I got access to the data. We can get in here and we can look to see what's available. Game Commission has done an amazing job at getting everything online and highly visible for us. But there are plenty of doe tags available in certain parts of the state where they really need to bring down that herd. And some of that has to do with population densities, again, of homes in urban areas.
Yeah.
And so that's another topic that we'll be covering here in the next couple of weeks is, urban hunting and where it's appropriate. And because there is a need. I was reading an article recently about just different approaches to deer population in urban areas because, the deer are taking over. Like they're out in everybody's front yards, they're eating their flower beds. People like to look at them, but they do, cause a little bit of destruction. And when that herd is not managed, it becomes overwhelming, for the population of a borough or a town or something like that. So I got some opinions on that too, but that's probably another subject for another time. As far as doe tags being readily available, yeah, they want to thin those certain areas out and they become available. And there are also other factors like the CWD that we've talked about in the past and different wildlife management areas where they want to kill the does off and the bucks for that matter as well. They got to just keep that to a certain part of the state.
Yeah. So, hey, I know we said we're going to post this link. There's a couple more information on it that I find is really interesting that we can let our audience dive into.
Mm-hmm.
Just information, how they age the deer, like where they get their information from, so forth. I just want to highlight here a couple other interesting statistics. They found that 27% of deer hunters harvest a buck. Reading that right there, it sounds great for our camp. It sounds like one of us is going to have some action.
Is that what you said? 27?
Yeah. So basically 1 in 4 if you look at that.
Yeah.
And they found with the deer, the bucks that were harvested, 64% of those were at least over 2.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at that, I think that's more so because of the 3-up rule, 3 on one side here in PA. So, the deer has to have 3 points. I think that's making more mature deer that are out there and helping the buck population. And then as for antlerless deer, they broke down what type of antlerless was harvested. So 69% was that mature doe that we talked about. 16% were button bucks, and 14% were fawns. So that's showing many people are letting the fawns walk, and they're taking those freezer queens. So those were just some touch points I wanted to touch on. I can get your take here, Ron, on those, whether you agree with those numbers or if they speak to you at all. But like I said, this article is here, and we'll attach to we'll attach a link here somewhere so you guys can dive into it more if it piques your interest.
Yeah, I'm really interested that 27% number that you brought up, 27% harvest a buck, because that's the ultimate trophy for the whitetail deer hunter, right? When I was a kid, I wasn't like enamored by the picture of a doe on the front of a magazine. It's always that, beautiful big buck, that's that picturesque, ideal situation for a whitetail deer hunter and, archers like us, that like to go out and really put the time in the woods. So 27% harvesting buck, that's 1 out of 4. Like you said, 25% 1 out of 4. That is an interesting number, because I've gone a lot of years where I haven't got a buck. So, I mean, I guess it rings true, don't get one every year. There was probably 5 to 7 years of my life where I wasn't even hunting doe. Like I was only hunting buck, and just because I didn't have a big family, I didn't need that much meat. Things change over the years, but that 27% number is really interesting to me. So, as far as the doe and the fawn and the button bucks and that sort of stuff, I'd imagine some of that is tied into, your junior hunter situation. Look, if you got a 12-year-old out there and he's going out and he's got a young deer, we say it all the time, hunt your hunt, man. It goes back to that getting hunters into a little bit of success. So, if a young doe walks out in front of a junior hunter, I'm not opposed to them taking that deer, because if that's what it gets their blood pumping so that they stick with the sport, it's not a bad situation.
Yeah, I think the doe report makes sense to me. The buck report does too, because I just think if you think of our clan, we've had good years where multiple members have gotten a buck, and we've had years where it was just one. And I don't know when it's been a year since we haven't got any, but I think if you just average everything up, it's got to be kind of close to that, because I know there's plenty of years for me where I haven't. I don't know for you personal, but there's gaps, and if you just look up our personal average, is probably about the same. So yeah. I just think it's interesting. I'm a numbers guy. I like numbers. I like statistics. So that really gets me going. But just highlight of this is the harvest reports are about the same. Buck harvests are a little bit up, but those are the same. So to tie that into our theme of deer management, that's promising, knowing that the reproduction process is going to happen and the balance is going to be there. So highlighting the 3 things we talked about today. We talked about fawns with their mortality. We talked about less hunters being in the woods because of the aging hunter and less people taking attachment to it. And then we talked about the harvest report here being promising in the sense that those aren't changing. So those are a few of some just highlighted points just to touch over as we're about to enter archery season here. And it's about to kick off for PA here, and things are going to get fun. But just to keep in mind that we enjoy doing it. We want to keep doing it, and we want to mentor our youth and those around us into it so that they can enjoy it and have, that reasons we mentioned before, just that connection with nature and their inner outdoorsman.
Yeah, totally love it. So, guys, if you enjoy this podcast, do us a favor, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a 5-star. We got a new feature on the website where you can text us a question. So go on there, click that text us a question link. If you're on Spotify or on our website, hit it, and we'd love to hear from our audience. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, go ahead, drop us a question in the comments. We love to hear back from you guys. We got some great shows coming up for you here over the course of next month, where we're going to be talking about mentor programs for youth, getting them involved into archery, and as well as some urban hunting tactics, and we were talking about dog trail tracking, blood trails as well. So we got a couple of topics on the slate. We're excited to do that, and we're going to be rolling into archery season. So it's going to get busy. It's going to get wild, but that's the way we like to live. We appreciate you guys tuning in to Tracks and Tackle. Like I said, give us a 5-star review. Give us some feedback. We love hearing from you guys. And if you got a topic that you want us to cover, let us know. We'll look into it, and we'll talk about it. Like we say always, nature is our playground. And we just want to remind you, hunting family, enjoy every day. Stay wild.